Welcome to the Industry 4.0 podcast with Grantek.
Hi, welcome to today's episode of the Industry 4.0 podcast with Grantek, where we take a look into the world of manufacturing with a focus on stories and trends that lead to better solutions. Our guests share tips and outcomes that are going to help improve your productivity. My name is Sam Russum, and I'll be your host. Today, I'm joined by Michael Risse of Seeq Advanced Analytics. Seeq's applications enable users to rapidly investigate and share insights from the time series data generated by manufacturing and IoT solutions. The result is faster decisions, the ability to drive continuous improvement in production KPIs, and increase profitability. So, Michael, thanks a lot for being able to join me on the podcast. Do you want to introduce yourself to our listeners?
Thank you, Sam. Appreciate the opportunity to be here. Michael Risse, Vice President and Chief Marketing Officer at Seeq, one of the founding partners back in 2013 when there were 10 of us around a picnic table. There's now over 200 spread across the United States, Europe, and into Asia. So quite a bit of growth over the last almost 9 years.
Yeah, that's great. It's really been fantastic working with Seeq and kind of seeing you guys grow over time. It's been a lot of fun. So let's kind of get this started like we always do with the broad but interesting question. What does Industry 4.0 mean to you?
That's a big question.
Yeah.
To me, you look at anything and you think about the balance between value and cost. Okay, that would be valuable to me, but what does it cost? And what Industry 4.0 to me says is, okay, throw all your cost expectations out the window because everything's going to get a lot cheaper. Data creation is going to get cheaper. Data storage going to get cheaper. The ability to calculate is going to get cheaper. The ability to distribute insights is going to get cheaper. So what might have been valuable but was too expensive, you really need to rethink the expense part of that or the cost part of that, because the wave of innovations is just driving down costs, and that's going to make for a different outcome when it comes to, well, is it worth me doing this from a value perspective? So what you wouldn't have done before, you might now do, and that whole change in attitude about the cost of something is, I think, a key driver in the Industry 4.0 discussion.
Yeah, good point. Actually, it really makes me think of those like adoption curves that you see about like new technology adoption all the time, right? It sounds like part of what you're saying is that some of those early adopters have done that trial by fire and kind of figured out some things that work and some things that don't and driven down some cost. And now it's the time where bigger parts of the industry can start to adopt some of this technology too.
Right. Well, the key thing is that on that adoption piece that I come back to a lot in customer conversations is, how do you adopt it in the context that you have, right? It's one thing to say, hey, we're going to adopt something. Oh, and you need to go hire new people first. And another thing, we need to adopt something. And oops, we need to turn all of our assets 90 degrees to the left, something ridiculous. And we want to do this, but the cost or the impact of adoption is high. So the question about adoption is, how does it work with you where you are, your current employees, your current deployments, your current production schedules and requirements, how to tap digital innovation in the context of what's already there. That's the key question about the adoption piece. And obviously, very different conversation for Greenfield, where you can plan for it from the get-go. But when there aren't any new oil refineries in the world in the last however many years, as an example. So that's the exception. The rule is make it work in where you are with who you've got. Solve that, and you can start tapping the cost benefits.
Yeah, you're totally right. And that's something I see a lot too, where I think that, there may be some need to add in some data scientists or some capabilities that you don't have today, but that's not the problem that you tackle first, right? You have to meet people where they're at. You have to see where it's going to provide immediate value to the business, and that's going to justify those future cooler things that we can be doing, right?
Yep.
Cool.
Yes.
Okay, so what is your least favorite Industry 4.0 buzzword that's out there? And I only said one, so yeah, be selective.
That's not fair. We do virtual user groups with our customers in different industries. So we've done chemical user groups and oil and gas, virtual because of COVID, obviously, but virtual user groups for chemical customers, food and beverage customers, pharmaceutical customers, oil and gas customers. And one of the things in the intro is we always give them a list of buzzwords and ask them that question: what is their favorite buzzword? So it's very that's always a popular part of the discussion. I don't know that I've got one least. Maybe it's artificial intelligence, just because when you scratch the surface, you end up in machine learning very quickly. And when you scratch machine learning, you end up often, not always, but in regression. The ability to, the biggest gap between sort of what you're actually using and then what the word is, to me, is artificial intelligence. And the idea that you would do that in a plant environment, rather than trusting in the expertise, the experience of the employees, how you would augment their work rather than replace their brains. Like, that's probably my least favorite of the words that are out there.
Yeah, I'm with you on that too. Actually, I don't know if I'd call it out my least. I would have to really think about that question too, I guess. But you're right. It's one of those things where, like, at its purest definition of just like computer systems emulating some type of more human intelligence, like, at a very basic level, that could be a couple of formulas in Excel, right? But we're kind of trained to think about it as something that controls a humanoid robot that is coming to attack me in a Will Smith movie, right? So,
no, and the other point is that time and again, what we find in working with machine learning, with Seeq, with customers, is just, it's the imagination of the users. And what do I mean by that? I just said expertise and experience. The imagination, where they're wondering and they're thinking about, and they're saying, oh, maybe it's this that's causing that. Oh, maybe it's this. And typically, you can't do an analysis on the data that you don't have. And so typically that innovation and that imagination is about, oh, let's get this other data set, put this into the mix and see if that has an impact and outcome. That expertise, scientifically, or imagination creatively, that so often is what leads to the discovery, right? If it could be coded and said, well, this is the outcome, or this is what you were looking for, well, that's great, but that's not typically what we see. It's the expertise, the experience, and the questioning that leads to, oh, we found what we were looking for, right? We avoided $23 million in downtime of a plant. We saved millions of dollars a year in this raw material or energy cost and savings. The tapping, enabling, accelerating the expertise and the experience of those employees. That, rather than magic boxes, is where we see this working.
You're right. The idea of applying something like artificial intelligence to what you described, human creativity, right? That sounds like a very heavy lift, right? And sometimes you just got to lean on that human creativity and the people that you have, right?
They so often, look, they know their expertise and experience. They know what they're looking for. It's just too hard to find, or it takes too much time to get there. Or in the past, the cost in time or money just didn't justify the effort, right? An example of that would be what customer we were working with. They had a 400-hour project in Excel, 400 hours among multiple employees. Was that 400-hour effort would have to have an outcome, right? That was really worth their time and energy. Okay, same thing less in Seeq was measured in minutes. Right, that's the kind of advantage we provide with advanced analytics on time series data specific to task versus the way things have been done in the industry broadly around for the last 30 years. Well, that radically changes what is this going to be valuable to do? Because instead of 400 hours, it's 53 minutes. Okay, that might be worth doing. We could take that and then go put it into effect. And again, customers typically, frequently, usually, always, when they're talking about the benefits they're experiencing with Seeq, start out at $1 million. $1 million in saving, $1 million in more uptime, $1 million in higher quality product and output, $1 million in asset availability, and so forth. So those hours and minutes, if they can spend them effectively, can really have a big downstream effect.
Great. So you ran right into my next question there, which is, so if we have all these, so you mentioned a couple of things that customers are looking to solve with software like Seeq and Industry 4.0, right? It could be saving people time. It could be reducing unplanned downtime. Is there a single problem or a couple of problems that you want to add on to that customers are frequently looking to solve with Industry 4.0 technology or advanced analytics technology like Seeq specifically?
I think the basic big theme is, what's next in better? What's next in better? There was a wave of better that had to do with Six Sigma or Lean or the Black Belt and Six Sigma efforts. The what's next for continuous improvement? What's next for the next level of better? Whether it's production outcomes better, quality better, energy efficiency better, environmental compliance better, sustainability better. What's the tool that's going to be used to enable and accomplish the next level of better for those plant results and KPIs? So that can take a lot of different directions in a lot of different industries and a lot of different use cases, whether it's predictive about what's going to happen, or diagnostic root cause analysis about what did happen, or monitoring by exception for what's going on out there and what should I care about. I have hundreds of thousands of assets. Tell me the 3 I care about most right now. So it's what's better, what's the next step in better, and then what in my industry and what matters to me as an organization. And that goes all over the place. I mean, the use cases we have, hundreds and hundreds of use cases across industries and in different scenarios. And there's no straight one answer on that one.
Yeah, no, that's totally true. And then as we look at that too, like over the next 5 years, can you think of anything like in this consumer technology space that you see kind of being adopted more by manufacturers over the next amount of time to kind of start to enable some of those solutions?
Well, I think it's less than a consumer technology specifically than it is a consumer model. And the consumer model is that stuff works together, and because consumers demand that stuff works together. And in the industrial manufacturing world, stuff that works together is so specialized they give it a name, which is COTS, which is commercial off the shelf. Oh my goodness, stuff works together. It's commercial off the shelf, as opposed to when's the last time you bought, well, probably the Apple stack would be an example, but a highly proprietary, only works my other things model. So I think it's more the consumer expectation of integration and things working together than a particular technology. And one thing that's certainly going to drive that is cloud, right? The cloud model of co-opetition, and things need to work together, and the customer expects this to work, and so we're going to have to make it work. That model of integration and interactivity between different vendors is definitely going to be accelerated with the push from the cloud, more data on the cloud, more work on the cloud, some manufacturing applications on the cloud, MES, not DCS, but probably MES and things like that. So it's the consumer model of co-opetition and things working together more than a consumer technology, if you will. That's going to change.
Yeah, sure. And actually, we were talking about this just the other day around how, especially as we are looking at cloud and we're looking at kind of some of those consumer technologies, right? I think more of subscriptions and software as a service, right? Which I know is some options for Seeq as well. And how we were actually talking about just kind of like the implications around that for cybersecurity, right? And how many times do you walk into a plant where they haven't upgraded the SCADA system in the last decade and it's running on a outdated version of Windows and things like that? So while a lot of manufacturers might be a little bit worried about this idea of kind of software as a service, the trade-off that you might be making for security and the regular updates and things like that you get by adopting cloud and things like that are enormous, and things that you don't even notice in a lot of the subscriptions that you pay in your day-to-day life. If your Netflix app gets updated or your phone gets a new OS, you just get it. You're always the latest version, right?
Well, that's going to be an interesting set of conversations depending on the app. If you're talking DCS and SCADA, and that's going to be on-prem and locked down for as far as I can see is my expectation. But for other systems, definitely, and when you're above L3 in the Purdue stack, L4, 5 apps, those could benefit from the updating or the maybe more consumer model of the subscription and updating software. And we've come a long way from software being updated every 18 to 36 months, right? Those are the old chip cycles. And with Seeq, we're at quarterly updates, and we're leaning towards, in some cases, actually having some components update more often. So it's going to be different in terms of the opportunities for getting that innovation out and then experiencing that innovation to the customer than what it's been in the past.
Yeah, absolutely. So we actually, some of the things we've been talking about here, right? So actually we're just mentioning how Seeq has those more frequent updates around how you guys are leveraging so much cloud technologies. What other things kind of differentiate Seeq as a platform, product, or a solution that you think is particularly of interest to manufacturers out there?
Well, I think, sorry, that's a little blunt, a little stuttery there, but
that's okay.
Key thing, ease of use. It's for the employees you have. If you can use Excel, you can use Seeq, right? There's some little training involved, and you can get going, but it's about, and where's your data? Your data is fine. If your data is in silos, or it's in the cloud, or it's on-prem, or it's on both, your data is fine. So that ability to install it in the morning and find $1 million of value in the afternoon, that's not an outlandish marketing claim. That is what can happen, because it's the people that you have with their expertise and experience. It's the data that you have where it currently exists. And then it's that ability to find a new set of insights, the next step of better, I mentioned before, that have a dramatic impact on outcomes. That is so important, because there's no preamble. There isn't a preamble. There isn't go hire these other people. There isn't go do this with all your data. There isn't, and again, it's ridiculous, and I apologize to your listeners in advance. Don't turn all your assets by 90 degrees or whatever the ridiculous notion would be, that you have to preamble something to start getting benefits. And once you have that working with the data where it is, with the employees that you have, and getting these advantages, there's also a future-proof aspect. So as the organization moves to the cloud, as new innovation comes in from your data science team or your IT organization, as other things happen, that can all extend or fit with the Seeq experience. And so it's that time to value on day one, and then it's okay, and we're safe with this over the years that follow.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. Great. So I wanted to ask a question to you that came from one of our earlier podcasts. We always try to pay it forward a little bit. You'll get to ask a question to a future guest as well. So the last question that I had was around what is the impact of machine learning in your area of expertise? They actually said AI in there too, but based on our conversation, I'm going to skip that part.
Buzzword.
Yeah, right. So how have you really started to leverage elements of machine learning and seen that work in your experience in manufacturing?
Got it. So the starting point for machine learning with Seeq was simply using it as technology, which was enabling the features that Seeq users were using. So, they could do things in the application point and click experience where we're using machine learning either to power the features, or they're actually interacting with something like regression models in the tool. What we've done in the last 6 months, which I think is just super interesting, is recognize, okay, wait a minute. There's, 2-3 million apps on the Google or Apple app stores, 2 or 3 million apps on the Apple app stores. How many algorithms are going to be in the world that are going to be compelling or interesting or useful? Will there be millions? Will there be hundreds of thousands? Will there be tens? I don't know what the number is. What I am positive of is they won't all come from Seeq. That there will be an opportunity for innovation in machine learning to come from multiple places. And our model at Seeq is bring your own algorithm, right? If there's something we've done, and we've got an open source site on GitHub with a set of algorithms, great, go use it. And you can plug it into Seeq Data Lab and work. If your IT department is using something like Azure Machine Learning to build interesting algorithms, you can tap that algorithm from the Seeq user experience so you can build your own. There are third parties building interesting algorithms. AWS has something called Lookout for Equipment. It's a predictive analytics algorithm, runs on data from that's collected in the cloud. Guess what? If you want to be in Seeq and take advantage of that algorithm from that third party that's building one of many examples, then you can do that. So our view on this is there's going to be a whole lot of algorithms in the world, and no one vendor, much less company, but no one vendor is going to be all of the algorithms you need or may want in your organization. So you can have your data science team building, do it. We'll plug those in. You can have third parties building them, like AWS. Then you can tap those as well. You could also use some of ours. You could also build your own as a process engineer, right? If you're comfortable with Python and want to start scripting things. So we just view this sort of like we view the Google Play or the App Store with Apple, which is there's going to be a lot of options from a lot of sources. And we won't be 100% of those. Our job instead is to enable you to access 100% of what's out there. And so that's where we are today in terms of we've had machine learning and building in our product and useful in our product. And now we've gone to a model of recognizing this constellation of algorithms that are available and will be available in the future, and enabling customers to tap those and the innovation they bring within the Seeq experience, so they don't have to go someplace else for it.
Yeah, that really resonates with me. I mean, I could make an argument that my entire department at Grantek is kind of based on some principles like that, right? Where it's not enough anymore to just come with the right software and the right tool. You also need those accelerators to kind of get those into a customer and see value very quickly and be able to take kind of a lot of them, right? So what Seeq on its own is very great, but Seeq coming with all of these options for machine learning algorithms that you can be plugging into this and leveraging is even more powerful, especially if you already have a library for a specific use case or for a specific industry to get so you're not starting from scratch every time.
We'll go back to your question a minute ago about consumer technology. Mm-hmm. Well, this is not so much a consumer technology as it a consumer mindset, which is, aftermarket products for the thing that I buy, whether it's, your car or your house and the new dishwasher or these other things. You assume an aftermarket opportunity to improve on some core asset or something that you acquire. This aftermarket attitude of customization, of specificness, of opportunity, that's what we're talking about, which is it's just being applied to machine learning algorithms rather than dishwashers or special hubcaps or something like that. It's, hey, that marketplace is going to exist to facilitate and accelerate my success.
There we go. There's our tagline for this episode. What machine learning and your dishwasher have in common.
That, by the way, is the first time I've used that. If any of your listeners want to take issue with it, then let me know.
No, I bought it.
It's what came to mind. It's what came to mind. I do think it is a consumerish attitude to say, hey, there's a marketplace of things out there, and those things should be able to work with my thing, and that should make me better off, right? From a perspective of working together.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I don't care that thing I have is a 40-year-old production asset that hasn't been updated in that entire time, but I still want it to work. And there's ways to do it.
It's all, Scotch tape and ball bearings.
All right. So what do you want to set up for the next person I interview? What Industry 4.0 question do you have that you want to hear answered in a future podcast?
Well, so I think of Industry 4.0 in sort of these time segments. There was pre-COVID, and that's when a lot of the first wave of attention and language and enthusiasm come out. Then there was the COVID wave, which really, to me, COVID equals cloud in terms of the impact and acceleration. We're starting to see, we had our first event last week, IHS Zero Week, major oil and gas conference, starting to see the return of in-person events, starting to see the in-person travel, things like that. Mm-hmm. So, okay, what does Industry 4.0 version 3 look like post-COVID world? Where do we go? Where does it go? Does it sort of stay on this cloud on rails model? Does it morph somehow in terms of expectations with respect to remote employees and where people are, centers of excellence? I'm curious what Industry 4.0 version 3, I love that. Industry 4.0 version 3 looks like.
I mean, that would be Industry 4.3. We realize.
Yeah, that would be good. That your language of that. What does Industry 4.0.3 look like? Innovation post-COVID.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great question. I hope we get someone good to answer that one. I'm sure we will.
And they have to use dishwashers in their response.
I hope so. Like, just for the continuity, that'd be great. This was obviously a lot of fun. Michael, thank you so much for joining me here on the Industry 4.0 podcast with Grantek. I hope everybody listening enjoyed too. Really great insights. Is there anything that Seeq wants to promote? Anything that you all are up to in the near future that you want our audience to know about?
No, we'll be back out at conferences to the extent that we can be. We've got materials and webinars coming, and we're still rolling along. So just if we can help, you can find me at info@seeq.com, and we can go from there.
Okay, that sounds great. So thanks again to our listeners. And also remember, we would love to hear from you as well. So follow Grantek on LinkedIn to stay up to date with everything that we're doing. Subscribe to the Industry 4.0 podcast with Grantek, wherever you get your podcasts. Email any questions, feedback, or your thoughts on Industry 4.0 to info@grantek.com. And join us next time on the Industry 4.0 podcast with Grantek. Thanks again, Michael. Really great time.
Thank you, Sam. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.